From the 1011 Now streaming studio in Lincoln, Nebraska, this is the REPORT Husker Show, sponsored by Fat Dog's Convenience Store.
Hi, everyone. Bill Rentschler alongside Sports Director Kevin Suits for another edition of the REPORT Husker Show, sponsored by Fat Dog's Convenience Store. I got a mug now, Kevin.
Looks nice.
It does look nice. I've yet to have an opportunity to fill it up.
You know what would look nice? A mug for me with the hot chocolate that you still owe me.
I do still owe you the hot chocolate.
Because I'm thawing out from the Iowa game. Still. Oh,
Yes.
my goodness.
But I did have good news for you today. I looked up, according to the Central Park reporting station in New York City, say 9 out of the last 10 years, pretty good weather on December 28th in New York.
You know, it's a really nice graphic that you put together. Thanks for doing that research. It's very useful for the Husker fans that'll be traveling to New York City. The snow totals on December 28th over the past 10 years.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Just a trace.
I'm surprised at that.
And New York City, at that Central Park reporting station, averages more snow in the month of December than we do here in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Oh, wow.
They're at 5.4, and we're at 5.3. So it's close. So
We'll monitor. You guys can't project out to December 28th yet, can you?
no, we can look at some of the long range stuff, and we can get an idea of like where in the ballpark we might be. But it's still too far away to put any hard.
Will
numbers.
it be warmer than 13 degrees?
The odds are in your favor for that. I would say they're definitely in favor for that. Their average low, I think, is only like 30 degrees.
Wow.
On December 28th. So, and we're like in the upper teens, maybe mid-teens in Lincoln. So, it gets a little bit colder here. But doesn't mean, won't snow, won't be snow on the ground, but could be a nice trip for
Some people might want that, Bill. You think about
to
New
the
York
holiday
City.
Feeling.
Yes, in between Christmas and New Year's, and people just got done watching Home Alone 2, and that's what they expect. The backdrop of that movie is going to be what Nebraska, the players are going to be walking around. I believe the team hotel is going to be really close to Times Square, if not on Times Square. They're going to get the full New York City experience.
They are.
It sounds actually pretty exciting.
The New York Stock Exchange, how cool is that?
There's a boat harbor tour around Manhattan and the islands, and I'm not too well versed in the Northeast. I'll be honest with that, but the list that they have for their itinerary, it sounds like they are the Rockefeller Center and the Rockettes and Radio City Music Hall, the to-do list in New York City. It sounds like those items are going to get checked off the list as Nebraska spends not quite a full week there. The team plans to depart on December 23rd. The game, of course, is the 28th at 11 a.m. Central Time, and they're going to play inside Yankee Stadium.
That's going to be really cool. Playing inside Yankee Stadium, that's going to be really, really cool. Kevin, since the last time we talked, last Wednesday, there's staff changes, portal entries, portal retractions, bowl prep. There's just been so much going on for Matt Rhule. He said today, we heard from him for the first time since signing day press conference last week, that he loves it. He loves December. It's
and
kind
he said,
chaos, but he loves it.
He said more chaos is going to come.
Yeah.
And that's not a commentary on Nebraska football. That's a commentary on college football because it's portal season. Teams are trying to prepare for bowl games. Players are opting out. Players are seeking new schools. Universities are trying to find the funds to attract certain individuals. It is very wild. And if there's ever a snapshot of the 24/7 news cycle in terms of collegiate sports, there's no greater example than the past 10 days as a case and study of Nebraska football. Going back to the days leading up to signing day, when Nebraska had the movement with the coaches, then, of course, signing day, getting a couple of players there on National Signing Day, the first day of the early signing period, getting Cortez Mills to sign with Nebraska, that was a huge get. And then, oh, by the way, through all of this, a restructured staff, through all of this, there is a football team attempting to get ready to go play in a bowl game and attempting to secure Nebraska's first winning season since 2016.
And so the last time we talked, Nebraska was without a full-time defensive coordinator. It had been said John Butler was going to coach for the bowl game, but now John Butler officially now the full-time defensive coordinator for Nebraska. What do you make of that move?
Well, it's something that the players really wanted. And we learned on Thursday. Today's Thursday, right?
It is still Thursday.
Yeah.
All day.
We learned on Thursday that Nebraska's players went to Matt Rhule and advocated for John Butler to become the permanent defensive coordinator. Rhule seemed very keen on that idea, and when the job opened up, he said that John Butler would be the interim defensive coordinator for the bowl game, but he was also going to be evaluated as a serious candidate. John Butler was a candidate for the Buffalo Bills defensive coordinator position back in January of 2024. He did not get that job. He feels like he was the right guy for the position, but he didn't. And that led him to pursue other options, made him available. Nebraska brings him on as a defensive backs coach for the 2024 season. He learned how to operate with Matt Rhule. He learned Tony White's scheme, the 3-3-5, and I think that was very appealing to Matt Rhule and the coaching staff, is that they did not want to, they seemed, I shouldn't say did not, they seemed unwilling to bring in a defensive coordinator that would implement an entirely new scheme, because that would be another year of learning, and it could maybe stunt the development and stunt some of the growth for the defensive players. The fact that John Butler has operated in this defense for a year, they have some pieces already recruited and on staff to play in this scheme. Just keep it going, and John Butler's the guy.
And so some specific points that Rhule even mentioned in his availability today: third down defense, 2-minute defense, sort of pass defense. Feels like John Butler can kind of get them, more advanced. With his NFL background, get an even more advanced sort of scheme in those areas.
Those things you just mentioned: third down defense, 2-minute deep. Those are things that I think Matt Rhule was evaluating on the offensive side of the football as well. Mm-hmm. Matt Rhule, when he hired Dana Holgorsen, he wanted Dana to have a vision for how to convert on third down, how to score in the red zone. So there have been some very specific metrics by Matt Rhule with these two coordinator hires that he's really put high priority on. And in the case of John Butler, he didn't have to look very hard. In the case of Dana Holgorsen, he had to go out and get one of the biggest names on the coaching market, and he did it, and then sign him to a pretty good deal.
Because you make an argument, this is a pretty big year for Matt Rhule. Year 3, this has been the year at his other stops at Temple and Baylor that the big jump has been made, to a 9-win, 10-win type of team. And, things obviously kind of with the with the way the offense was performing, weren't necessarily trending in that direction maybe, but now things, pointed up a little bit more with these hires.
It's a very big year for Nebraska and Matt Rhule in year 3. And it's not just because it is year 3 and the team's looking to take the next step forward, but you're not bringing in a freshman quarterback. You're looking for Dylan Rhule to advance his skill set. The roster should upgrade, even though there are going to be some major pieces to fill, such as Ty Robinson, Nash Hupmaker. Those are the first couple of names that come to mind. That's why retaining, I think, Emmett Johnson is massive, because Dana Holgorsen really likes Emmett Johnson. Secondly, he knows the system, and he has a year of playing with Dylan Rhule. So there's just so much momentum that Nebraska really needs to capitalize on in 2025. And Matt Rhule's not the only coach saying this, but these bowl games, it used to always be a celebration and a way to cap off the regular season that was. Now they are becoming a prelude to the season that will become. And if you look at the players that are on the practice field right now for Nebraska getting a lot of the reps, these young players, some have barely touched the field, they're going to play prominent roles in the Pinstripe Bowl. And that's an illustration of the way these bowl games have really kind of transformed into modern-day college football, because you have players opting out. You have players entering the portal. So it's allowing the players that will fill major spots for the upcoming year to have a bit of an audition.
Yeah, really a springboard for the following season. He mentioned people as Donovan Jones, Caleb Benning,
Amari Sanders,
Braylon Prude, names that you haven't even heard of this season.
But that's kind of exciting, Bill. Sorry to cut you off, but they've been working their tails off the whole year. And a lot of them have been working their tails off just for the sake of their own development, knowing that this was going to be a redshirt year. Well, they're going to play. Mm-hmm. And in the words of the team, they're going to play a lot.
It will be interesting to see, because again, you still have, it's December 12th, you still have 16 days till the bowl game, and there's still probably going to be a number of players who end up not on the roster, maybe not going to the game, transferring out, what have you. But it will just be really interesting to see what that 2-deep looks like by the time you get to December 28th.
We got a little glimpse into that because Matt Rhule said on Thursday that the number 2 quarterback is Jalen Gramstad.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel Kalen hit the portal.
Mm-hmm.
Heinrich Harburg is now practicing at tight end, and he could be available to serve as a quarterback should the Huskers need him to play that position in the Pinstripe Bowl. Instead, they would rather have Heinrich Harburg play tight end because that's a spot he's going to focus on next year. Matt Rhule even saying he's one of the most athletic guys he has ever coached. So, as you mentioned, the 2 deep, Bill, if we were to get a printout today, Nebraska's quarterback spot would be Dylan Raiola, number 1, and number 2, Jalen Gramstad, who a year ago was playing NAIA football. And that's no disrespect to him.
No, but
he can throw it.
His world has completely flipped.
Yeah, he's a very heady quarterback, and we've done stories on Jalen, and what an incredible story. You know, led an NAIA team to a national championship. He's a player of the year, and is now on Nebraska's roster. Nebraska's 2 deep for the Pinstripe Bowl. So that's the quarterback situation. And I think the other position that a lot of folks will probably zone in on whenever the depth chart comes out, if that is ever revealed ahead of the Pinstripe Bowl, the defensive line. Because there have been some departures there, and linebacker, because you have Jamari Butler, he's entered the portal. Mekhi Bear has entered the portal. There are some pretty big holes on the defense. And it benefits Nebraska that Boston College is not a team that throws it around and averages 35-plus points per game.
They do have, I couldn't tell you his name off the top of my head. I know they have a defensive player. I think he leads the nation in sacks.
Correct. He was the Defensive Player of the Year in the ACC. And
I'm selfishly kind of hoping he might opt out for the game. I don't know if I want to see much of him during the bowl game. Want to mention, though, Ramir Johnson, got a chance to hear from him today. 6-year guy who, and I think I heard you talking about it in the newsroom, you know, how many offensive coordinators has he been through in his 6 years
5
in Nebraska? And he just
I misquoted that on a social media post. I had 6, but it is 5. Troy Walters, Matt Lubick, Mark Whipple, Marcus Satterfield, Dana Holgerson. You could argue that, you know, Scott Frost was not by title the offensive coordinator, but he was the play caller. And not only has Ramir Johnson gone through a number of offensive coaches in his time at Nebraska. I mean, he started in 2009. Think about that, Bill. He's a 6th-year running back. So he's gone through that many offensive changes. Think about the number of teammates he's had at Nebraska. In the locker room, and it's not always a great. You're not best friends with everybody in the locker room. So he's had a lot of guys wearing the same jersey as him come and go. He's had 2 different head coaches. He's endured a number of injuries, but he keeps coming back every single time.
Mm-hmm.
So Nebraska qualifying for a bowl game, it's a pretty remarkable story for Ramir Johnson. In the portal era, that could have left on numerous occasions, stuck with it, continued to battle through injury, and rehab from injury. He never hung it up. He's kept playing. He hoped that he would have been a little bit more healthy this year. That was his number one hope for his 6th season of college football, was to be healthy. He's been on the field a number of times. He missed some time with a concussion, but here he is. He gets to play in a bowl game with Nebraska, and he gets to do it in his hometown. He's from Harlem, and he's going to have a number of family members and friends watching him take the field inside Yankee Stadium to cap his adventurous, that's his words, of a career.
I think I know what feature story you might try and snag while you're in New York, but
it's incredible. It's a great story.
5 to 10 minutes, I think, is what he said. How far away he was from Yankee Stadium. He said it depended on what bridge you took, but 50 to 75, I think he said, friends, family members going to be there. Also, I looked it up. Running backs on the roster in 2019 when he started here. You have names like Cooper Jewett, Ronald Tompkins, Dedrick Mills, Maurice Washington, Jalen Bradley, Moses Bryant, Wyatt Mazur, Brody Belt.
I mean, Wyatt Mazur is like 4 years into his career, like outside of football.
Yeah.
Ramir Johnson still just chugging along.
Good story.
And what did he say at the very end of that quote, Bill? Said something like, "I'm glad to be a Husker."
Yeah, he did.
And it was the most heartfelt. And Ramir Johnson's not a guy that shows a ton of emotion, but it was the most heartfelt. I am through all the muck through all the challenges in his life and his career and his time in Lincoln, like ultimately, he's happy he's here.
It's one of the things that just makes you a fan favorite. And even after you're gone, people remember a person like that who puts their heart on the field and gives their all. So also you had announced today Phil Simpson is back. He had departed for Florida State. We've been swapping coaches with Florida State here. He's, I believe, outside linebackers coach. Is that correct?
Correct.
And so not official, but Rhule talked about it today. Phil Snow will be assumedly joining the staff, as well as, I can't remember his name, from the Chiefs, defensive line coach coming from the Chiefs.
Braden,
thank you. So
Terry Braden.
You're recruiting out of the portal. You're trying to hire a staff. You're trying to prep for a bowl. Matt Rhule, I think, said today there have been many days where he hasn't done really anything with the team practice-related because he's trying to do all this other stuff.
That's where your coaching staff is so vitally important.
Garrett McGuire is gone now. He's took a job at Texas Tech with his dad, running backs coach down there. And while we're on the topic of coaches, I just have to ask your opinion. Scott Frost back at UCF now, and Bill Belichick taking over North Carolina.
And they're going to coach against each other next year.
That's going to be must-see TV. That's going to be wild.
College football never ceases to amaze, right? Frost going back to UCF, I don't know I think if somebody would have floated that idea back in November, you would nod your head and say, I could possibly see it happening. It's not completely out of left field.
No.
Bill Belichick to North Carolina.
That's completely.
It's just stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, then it's not stupid that he's taking the job. It is stupid that that word is used as this is mind blowing. In what universe do we exist in which Bill Belichick, who won all the Super Bowls with the Patriots, is coaching at North Carolina?
If you would have told me he was coaching in North Carolina, I would have said, you got the Panthers job, taking over the Panthers, not the Tar Heels.
Right. Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
So that'll be interesting.
But Scott Frost is at UCF, and he was introduced over the weekend, and now Bill Belichick's at North Carolina. Wow, what in the world? And Matt Rhule's leading Nebraska into year 3, which unofficially kicks off in the Pinstripe Bowl on December 28th.
And so, switching over, volleyball, you have regional semifinals and finals this weekend at Bob Devaney. Huskers match up against Dayton tomorrow night, I believe.
Friday night.
And then Wisconsin and Texas A&M is on the other side of that bracket there. Thoughts and feelings on the Huskers' path to a Final Four in Louisville?
They can do it. That's my thought. Nebraska that's the road to get to the Final Four. I think it's very attainable. They looked so good in the opening week of the NCAA tournament. 25-3 in the first set. That's stupid.
Yeah,
I mean that's pretty incredible. Because that's not making any errors, Bill.
No.
It's not like Nebraska was just kind of bumping the ball over and say, okay, your turn. No, they were swinging for it, and they were keeping the ball on the court. No service errors, no hitting errors, and they were just a machine. I think my bigger curiosity heading into this regional round of the NCAA volleyball tournament, at Devaney Center at 6 o'clock on Friday, who are the Nebraska fans cheering for? Texas A&M or Wisconsin?
I think it's weird that obviously everything that's happened that with Nebraska and Texas A&M, Trev Alberts, that there has been as much crossover between, you faced them in the NCAA tournament, men and women's basketball, and now you potentially have them in volleyball in the postseason. I think if it were me, they're probably cheering for the Big Ten team.
Well, let's remove the Texas A&M part of the discussion here. Do Nebraska fans want to play Wisconsin in the Elite Eight? The Badgers pose a bigger threat to Nebraska and a bigger roadblock to getting to the Final Four.
Yeah.
So do you cheer for that team? Because it is the Big 12. And everybody talks about how hard it is to beat a team 3 times in a year. But I do think of the number 2 regional seeds for Nebraska, when the bracket was released, I thought Nebraska's a very favorable draw to the Final Four.
Yeah.
I really do. Even though they have to go through Wisconsin again, do I think it's conceivable that Nebraska beats Wisconsin again? Absolutely.
I mean, they swept them twice. It's not like it were 5-set matches. I mean, there's certainly the potential it could be a 5, but they swept them pretty convincingly both times.
If you're to throw those teams, those number 2 seeds, all in a hat and say Nebraska, pick who you want to play, I think they'd pick Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm. I think you're probably.
They don't want Stanford.
Mm-mm.
I mean, Stanford is hot. Maybe they take Creighton. Creighton's got to play Texas. I mean, this is a fun tournament, fun time of year. The elite teams in college volleyball are really, really good. And throughout the course of this season, there have been multiple times in which I have either, from the stands at the Devaney Center or courtside covering the game, I've walked away and said, this is a national championship team. They have the parts of it. And I do feel like Nebraska could be on the brink of winning a national championship.
Road to the Roses? Is that what it is?
Run to the Roses or Race to the Roses? It's one of the two.
Yeah.
That's their phrase. I don't know how out there or how commonly known that is across the fan base. That's kind of the mantra behind this season. It all goes back to the Kentucky Derby, Louisville. It's on the front of their media guide, and now you see some of their social media content all incorporating the Roses. That's what it's all about.
All right. So, yeah, that first match could be a late night because Texas A&M Wisconsin will play first. I believe that first serve is at 6.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. And Nebraska's match will be 30 minutes immediately following that match. I doubt you're going to get an hour and 3-minute match like you had against Florida A&M between those two teams. So you could be starting 9:30, 10 o'clock, depending on how long that match goes.
You think so?
Goes 5 sets.
I mean, yeah, a 5-set match does last about 2.5 hours, and then there's going to be about a 30-minute warm-up period.
Yeah.
Nebraska could conceivably start at 9 or a little bit after.
And so that'll be ESPN2, and obviously we'll have highlights at some point, depending on when it starts and when it...
Tell you what, we're gearing up for a very exciting Friday. At the Devaney Center, Nebraska volleyball is playing in the Sweet 16. Nebraska basketball is playing at 7 o'clock against Indiana for the Big Ten home opener. That game tips off at 7 o'clock at Pinnacle Bank Arena. We have high school basketball Friday night as well.
And the Stars play.
And the Lincoln Stars. How about that? They also play tonight. So,
all right. Okay.
Fun time of year.
It is. All right. Well, you're a busy guy, Kevin, so thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Appreciate everyone for tuning in and watching. As always, until next time, hope everyone has a good one, stays warm out there, and we'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the REPORT Husker Show, sponsored by Fat Dog's Convenience Store. Watch, listen, and stream on the 1011 Now app, on YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. For more Husker coverage throughout the week, watch the Report on 1011 Sports at 6 and 10 p.m. and download the 1011 Now app.